Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. After that train wreck of a build I gave you all on Monday, which again I apologize, but it's kind of the point of the challenge. I really wanted to give you guys something really nice. Just like you're gonna look at it and be like, wow, that is nice. That's the plan. So I told my husband this and suggested that he find a house for me to build. You know, something he's like, oh, this is a nice house. And so he picked one. And it's like this 30 bedroom, 40 bathroom, massive palace. And I'm like, no, honey. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I will not be building that today. So instead he picked this one, which I will link in the description of the video. I'll link the original pin as well as my Pinterest board of all like my big houses. So if you're like, oh, this is cool, and you think I'm good at picking cool houses, you can check that board out. So he picked this one from my board. I believe it is Russian. I could be wrong, but I checked it with like Google Translate and everything. Absolutely beautiful house. Definitely fits in that category of, oh wow, this is nice. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that big front stairway. So I really wanted that big front stairway, but the only way I could think of to like execute it properly would be to use platforms. So just a heads up, the whole base level of this build, it's not like ground level, it's all on platforms, not a foundation. Platforms. So it might be a little funky with lighting. I didn't notice any discrepancies, but also I didn't do too much inside just because the outside and the landscaping took so much time. So just be aware that if there's like weird lighting or whatever, that's what the thing is. It's because platforms can cause strange shadows sometimes. Again, I didn't notice anything too weird, but if you're playing in the house and you notice it, that's what's going on. The other thing that was really cool about this build was it's just, I don't know what the architectural style is. I still have to like look that up and figure it out, but it's just so detailed and yet so blocky, and it was really cool. So there are, I'm about to add them here, I think, these like semicircle sort of tiny porch balcony things up above some of the windows, and some of them are rectangles, and there are columns, and there are roof decorations which I use that I've never used before. And I think I only end up using 2 packs in this one. I wanted to just do 1, but I realized with like the amount of ornate details and everything that I really wanted to carry through in this house, I would have to use both the Get Famous doors and windows, which are the gold like super fancy ones here, as well as the Discover University windows, which you also see. Those are like the white ones with the brown, like, words are failing me here. The white windows with the brown inside. Those are Discover University. So Get Famous and Discover University, I believe, are the only 2 packs I used, plus that and of course base game. But this fence lined up like perfectly. Plus I knew I had to use Discover University to get those columns. And it had those really cool roof decorations that ended up being extremely similar to what was on the original build. So overall, Discover University came in clutch. I also thought it was interesting that the top half of the building is more ornate than the lower half. The lower half did have some columns and things, but for the most part it seemed to be a pretty clean like plaster look. And then the upper story, the top, I'm sorry, talking is really hard for me today. I'm doing my best though, because I need to get this voiceover done. The top part is what had like all of the columns and the extra ornamentation. Also the roof, I know it's not the exact same as is in the image. The image, if I were to duplicate it more exactly, I'd probably end up going for something more akin to a mansard roof, but for the sake of time and detailing and just all that stuff, the roof was already being complicated with some of these extra pieces. I just opted to just stick with this. I didn't want it to get too heavily ornamented, because if you put too much stuff on a lot, first of all, it can get really slow and laggy. Second of all, it can just like start clipping and glitching, and that can cause issues. Plus you can run into the issue really fast where you have too much ornamentation on one specific section of the build and not enough elsewhere, and then it will look lopsided and just like off balance basically. Also these little like column endy things that I'm starting to place here, they gave me some serious trouble with wanting to place properly. This is also around the time that I realized that the little roof decorations were in fact on their own smaller balcony things. I really need to learn more architectural like verbiage. If you have any good resources for that, seriously, please let me know. I'm sure there are YouTube channels that are exactly what I'm looking for. I just don't really know how to look them up exactly. Like, what keywords am I supposed to be using? Because when I've searched before, it's kind of like more real estate tours, and I want actual details, like why did they build it like this, where is it from, all that sort of stuff. So if you know anybody who gives way too many details about architecture, specifically residential architecture, really, but from anywhere in the world, please let me know. I would love the leg up there. Working on this back balcony, I wasn't entirely sure how much of it I wanted to be accessible, so it turns out that some of the areas are not on the back, just because I thought it looked better overall from the outside. Of course, you could fix this by extending it or by placing it on a larger lot and being able to pull the whole thing out farther without messing up the garden too much. You could add doors instead of windows, all that stuff. I thought it looked better like this. I thought it lined up better with the balconies above, so that's why like the ones in the back aren't super functional, but they do look really pretty, and they don't necessarily detract from the rest of the build. So now here is where I'm starting to add color, and I wanted to not be completely black and white because I tend to go toward black and white, and I already forced myself in the warmer tone direction by adding that super warm shingle color. Also, the other issue with platforms, as you're seeing here with these stairs, is they do not play well with stairs. For whatever reason, it's just so hard to get stairs to line up with platforms. Even if the platform is like the same height the whole way across, it's going to try to link like literally anywhere else other than the platform that's right in front of it, which is really, really frustrating. So I think I ended up using more platforms in the back just because I could not get the stairs. Stairs is such an easy word. The stairs to line up properly. So I ended up using platforms, again, trying to keep it elegant and big and grand and just really, really nice. Now this does end up only being a 3-bedroom because I do put in a floor plan because I love you. However, they are pretty spacious. So in theory, I'm just trying to remember right now. I mean, I'll get a better look at it in a few minutes, but in theory, you could probably get a good 5 bedrooms upstairs if you really wanted to, plus there's ample space downstairs for more stuff. So it's not like a huge, huge mansion. It's definitely more along the lines of a large family home, probably an estate that's been handed down over generations. Definitely a great place for someone who's really, really famous to live. I would definitely say that. Lots of room for entertaining, for the parties and stuff. You could even put in a practice stage. I'm sure there's plenty of space. So overall, a lot of space, but in a fairly compact footprint, which you get with a rectangle. I know it's a really, really basic shape, but you can do a lot of great things with rectangles. This part with the stone, I do end up reworking this significantly later on when I actually start to add the landscaping, and I don't remember if I'm adding that now or if that comes later. I also don't know what I'm doing with this circle. Oh, that's right. I wanted to see if I could put in a pond, and I could not. And then I thought about putting a fountain there, and then I realized no, because the curved walls make the ground like rise up around them weird, and there wasn't quite enough room to do that huge get famous fountain, although it definitely would work with this build, but I probably would have had to put it on a 64 by 64 lot, and this one is I think 50 by 40. It's one of the larger ones, but it's not like the biggest one. So yeah, so here I'm getting rid of some of that stone. So it is a double gated entrance, but I thought that the 2 gates and then that lower fence in the middle highlighting the fountain just looked really pretty. Doing some rectangles in the back, and yes, now I had to start to decide how exactly I wanted to do the landscaping. And here I'm procrastinating doing the landscaping by working on the interior. I ended up using a different method than I usually do for the balcony up here. Typically you can just like draw a fence and then delete the floor or whatever and it'll be fine, especially since there wasn't any roof on that layer. However, I ended up having to use square tiles to sort of like draw out the space. So if you've watched my other builds, you'll see how flip-flop between them. It's definitely easier to just be able to delete some floor. And on the side note of like the open lofted spaces in builds, if you're having issues with that, I have videos here on YouTube as well as some on TikTok going over that. If you have any specific questions, let me know and I'll make a video about it. But basically, you should be able to use a fence or a half wall and delete the floor. What that's going to do is if you have any other roof on that same level, it's going to clip in, so you'll have to rearrange the roof a little bit. And if it's still not working, you may just have to delete the floor entirely and redraw it with those flat square tiles, which is what I did here. I did add a lot of wallpapers downstairs. I tried to mix it up but keep it all in the same sort of warm brown color family. I didn't want it to read as beige and cheap. I wanted it to have a little bit of richness to it, and I think it turned out okay. So again, I did do a bit of a floor plan. I didn't do any furnishing or anything, just this build was already taking a lot of time, and yeah, I need to record a ton of other stuff right now. But I did do lighting and I put down flooring, so it should be pretty obvious what each room is supposed to be. And obviously you don't have to stick with the floor plan. As always, if you do use this build and you furnish it or remodel it or whatever, let me know. You can either comment on it on the gallery and I'll go check out your upload, or you can tag me on Instagram, let me know on TikTok. I've been suggested to join Twitter as well, so we'll see if that happens. I'll definitely keep you updated. I really like doing the exteriors and building big stuff like this, and if you think this is big, just wait till you see what's coming out next Friday. I did put some lights on the front walkway, and I remembered that one of the best ways to make your build like feel expensive and stuff is actually to light the outside, because usually like a suburban, a family home, something like that will have at least one light outside, like a porch light or something. But if you really want it to look like wow, putting some lights on the outside can be really nice, especially when you have those more ornate windows and doors and they can like catch the details and stuff. It just looks really nice. So if you're looking for a way to step up your builds, I recommend adding more exterior lighting. Do I do this very often? No, but it's still a good tip. So I will still recommend it. I did make these little, I just pointed to the screen like you can see me. These little triangle ponds. These are just ponds dug out underneath the foundation. I've done that in a lot of builds. I like how it makes it like crisp and almost pool-like. In fact, a good place to see how I did that a little bit more detail, where I like go into it a little bit more, would be in my 15K build challenge. Basically you just like make a little path around where you want your pond, and then you hollow the pond out, and then when you put the pond in, it gives it those really nice clean edges, and it almost looks like a pool or a fountain. But fountains, as we all know, are a pain to place, and they are so particular about where you can put a fountain. And you put down a pool, and unless you put a fence around it, your Sims are going to swim in it. So I find that this is a really great workaround, where you like draw out the pond with a path or something, and then dig it out and put the water in. Now here I realized I was going to place a lot of plants because I wanted it to feel like more manicured or whatever, so I made a room and then I copied it and placed it everywhere. So that's what you're seeing here. Also, the house, the center of the house is an odd number. I think it's like 5 or something, so it's not directly centered in the lot. I did my best to mask this with the landscaping, although I won't pretend that I did like an amazing job. I'm aware that it's not completely symmetrical, but that wasn't an option. So instead I just tried to take the same number of plants on either side and then space them out evenly. I thought the elephant topiaries were pretty cool. Also, they're surprisingly cheap. I keep thinking that they're like super expensive, but I think they're only like $100 or something. So elephants for the win, I guess. And here's where I realized that it was in fact an uneven number because I couldn't place the gate in the back. So I ended up just deleting the fence there. I thought about doing like an archway or something, but in the end I just left it open. Obviously what you do with it is up to you. I just thought it looked best like that. And here is again where I'm trying to like figure out how I'm supposed to place these, so I ended up going with just 3 bushes on either side and then placing them evenly, so it kind of looks symmetrical unless you go down and start to count the tiles. So don't do that. But I think we can all agree at this point, it's not quite done yet, but I think we can all agree that this build is far superior to the 10-minute build challenge, which, I mean, obviously this took like 3 hours, I think. And about half of that was probably the like landscaping portion. Probably half was figuring out the whole build and getting those roof pieces all sorted out, and then the other half was like landscaping. In this pool, I do forget about these little gold decorations a lot. I wish that I would use them more. Like, they're so pretty and they just add so much elegance to whatever it is that you're like building. So yeah, I use some of those and I think it looks pretty cool. Anyway, doing the landscaping out front. So here's what I was thinking for this part of the landscaping. I didn't want it to be too overpowering. Like, I didn't want this to feel like layers upon layers upon layers of flowers and all this stuff. Like, I didn't want it to be rich like that. I wanted it to be rich, like well manicured and less is more and stuff like that. However, this was kind of tricky because I was just trying to make it look good, and it also felt like a lot of dirt was showing. So, you know, it is what it is. I think it turned out okay. When we get back from placing these lanterns, we'll go into it a little bit more. But yeah, I didn't mind that front portion, but then I didn't want all that empty grass. So then I had to decide, what do I want to do about all this empty grass? So I made some more quarter circles to try and add some more garden stuff there, trying to keep it like nice and classy, but expensive because everything's so well manicured and lined up, and not expensive because they're just so much. Also, I was concerned about the lot starting to lag if I layered in too many plants, since I had all those other plants already on the perimeter of the build. So I ended up going for just some basic flowers, and I think I threw down some rocks eventually. You will see me try to make a rock river and then delete it and then put it back again in a different way, and yeah. The rock river on this side didn't look too bad, but then I could not get it to look good on the other side, so those do not stay. For a future build, perhaps I'll bring this in again, but for this one it just wasn't working out. I was also thinking at this point about bringing in Get Together for some lawn ornaments because I love all the lawn decorations that they have in that pack, but in the end I just decided to go with more fountains and a few more flowers and bring in a little bit more color because the green and brown was kind of getting to me, but again I didn't want to just like go crazy and make it look like a cottage garden. Nothing against cottage gardens, it's just clearly not what was going to be appropriate for this build. And then I still wanted to take up a little bit more of the lawn space, so I was thinking about making a path. But I wanted it to have like just enough twist and wind to like look like, oh, like look, we've done a well manicured and totally intentional random path. But then I just didn't like how that was turning out, so I erased it and kept debating about what I wanted to do, and eventually I settled on using my quarter tile trick to make some diagonal paths. If you want to place just quarter tiles of your flooring, all you have to do is hit Control and F. I don't know what the console version of that is, or if you can do it on there. I'll look into that. I do not have a console, so I can't even like just get the base game on there and test out these key combinations and cheats and stuff. I just have to go by what the internet says, which lo and behold can frequently be wrong. Terrain paint, as always, is super important to making a build look finished. I think I got this from Lil Simsy. I just realized one day, like, hey, Lil Simsy is putting like this brown paint under all of her stuff and it looks really good. So I started doing it and I did it really, really bad at first, but I think, you know, all of us try to copy what Lil Simsy does because she's fabulous, and then we do it and it sucks. But eventually I figured it out. So I figured out like where to put my little brush and then how to paint it. And I mean, my edges are still kind of rough, but then I prefer the little bit of a stronger outline. I always have, like if you look at any of my film work or anything, that's just kind of like, it just matches the aesthetic, if that makes sense. Placed tons of fireflies, also an excellent aesthetic move. I think I put a few dragonflies, and I was going to say put an alligator, but that's actually from the speed build that we're going to go through next week Friday. So if you want to see a build that deserves alligators in a pond, you'll want to check that one out. Added some street lamps, just again, I thought that, you know, it just looks nice. So let's look at this build in the game now. So here's the build in game. You can get a quick look at it with all the different lighting options. Evening obviously is best, but then with night you can see how it's all lit up. The garden is all lit up. I'll turn off that grid there for you. I just think that it being lit up looks really nice. And then the morning light. I'll give you a quick tour of the grounds here, and then we could also look at it in live mode so you can actually see the fountains running. So this lowest step here is foundation, but then the rest of them are all platforms. It looks like this one didn't paint properly, so we'll fix that real quick. There we go. And the foundation-lessness of the build is pretty much hidden by these bushes, which thank you for your service, little bushes. The garden is fairly symmetrical. Like if you didn't know that it was off by one tile on one side, I don't think you'd be able to guess from up here. And then on the main floor you go into this main entry, and typically I would have put some sort of like archways or something here, but I did not. I have you go all the way back here before you can enter on this side. There are two decent sized bathrooms, a good sized living space, maybe a library or secondary living space, an office space here, dining and kitchen area. So you can tell that they're all pretty decent sized spaces, but they're not that far of a walk from one another. So this should be extremely playable as far as size goes. And then upstairs, again, huge open space here, which you could of course add more bedrooms, whatever. I think a ping pong table looked pretty good here, you know, but that's just me. Over here I did a couple of bedrooms with bathrooms. But again, this is a lot of space here. You could pretty easily, I think, add another bedroom over here, and then this of course is the master bedroom with an enormous bathroom. The other thing with the downstairs being up on a platform is you can't actually see the bottoms of any of the wallpaper, so if you're wondering like, hey, why doesn't the bottom trim show up, that is why. And if I click on this room you can see how this is like where I put those tiles, and this is a separate room, or not even a room, in here. Also a closer look at these roof decorations, which I had to stack several of, but I just I've never used these in a build before, and I just think they add so much. Like, I'm seriously stoked with how well this build turned out. I used so much gold, which is usually not a color I use, but it looks so good. And then in back, I just added a little bit of a pool. There are those 2 little ponds, and over here I put a bar, but honestly, like, can you imagine a wedding arch over here with the fountains going? Gorgeous, stunning. I'm going to use this house just to get someone married in with all the gameplay I do. For every hour I spend in build mode, I probably spend like 2 minutes actually like playing the game. I do want to show you the fountains though in live mode because they are also beautiful. So it is raining, but that's okay, it still looks pretty. Here's sort of that, I should be able to, alright, cool, I can do the live mode thing. So there's that little fountain space there where, again, it's a bar right now, but I think a wedding arch could be absolutely stunning there. And then I just added some little fish fountains in the side because I thought it was cool. I don't think the fireflies come out when it's raining, which is a bit of a shame. So looking up the information on the website that has this house, which again I'll link below, translating it with Google says, the magnificent facades of houses in the classical style combine the harmony of the antique order system with rich architectural decoration. The aristocratic and refined exterior matches the beauty of the interior design and favorably emphasizes planning solutions. Honestly, I think that translated pretty well. I think I'll call it Classic Russian Mansion, so that's what it's called on the gallery. Final decision. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Just a quick reminder, if you want to do the shell challenge, you have, as of this video posting, I believe 2 weeks still to do that. I'll link that video in the top card here, and then a bottom card, which is of course a video that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. I suspect they are correct, they usually are. Feel free to leave questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for builds in the comments down below. See you all here again very, very soon. Bye!